Welcome to the New Horizon Updates channel. We're excited to have you as a part of our community, where we regularly share the most recent news and information about our exciting developments. Keep an eye out for frequent updates and join us on this journey toward new horizons. Multiple airstrikes were conducted on Hamas militants in the Gaza Strip, along with the execution of a drone strike on an anti-tank missile team in southern Lebanon. The response to Hezbollah included artillery and tank fire. Rocket attacks were launched by Hezbollah toward northern Israel, with some mortars entering Israeli territory. Rocket launches from Syria into northern Israel also occurred, leading to artillery responses. Syrian airfields were targeted 2 consecutive days, including Aleppo Airport, which was said to have been hit multiple times. Syria accused Israel of aggressive actions in the region. Iran offered support to Hamas, and Hezbollah militants intensified their offensives against northern Israel, heightening tensions in the region. Preparation for a potential ground incursion into Gaza included the establishment of an evacuation route for northern Gaza residents. Preparations are being made for a full-scale invasion of Gaza, with focus on enhanced readiness for a ground operation. Global attention is on the impending ground intervention, with the Israeli Prime Minister emphasizing preparations. The Hamas leader urged Palestinians not to evacuate, despite advisories. Notices to nearly 1.1 million northern Gaza inhabitants were sent out, advising them to vacate within 24 hours for an impending ground assault. Despite these warnings, Hamas leaders encouraged civilians to stay put, while many residents have begun to relocate. The United arranged evacuations for its nationals in Gaza and sent fighter jets to the Middle East to reinforce its military presence in the region. A second U.S. aircraft carrier was dispatched toward the eastern Mediterranean, coinciding with Israel's preparations for potential ground operations in Gaza. Over the past week, numerous operations were conducted against Hamas targets in Gaza, including headquarters and compounds. These actions have resulted in significant damage to militant organizations in the region. The Israel Defense Forces, IDF, reported the destruction of various targets beyond Hamas, including the killing of Bialudra, the commander of Nubu forces in Konan, who was responsible for recent killings near Kibbutz. The IDF conducted airstrikes in Gaza, targeting multiple areas, including Gaza City in the north and Rafah in the south. Israeli tanks were reported to have bombed the eastern parts of Gaza, and heavy machine gun fire was heard near the border fence. Additionally, there were reports of airstrikes and large explosions. The IDF responded to rocket fire from Lebanon, where 9 rockets were fired into Israeli territory. The Iron Dome defense system intercepted 8 of these rockets, and the IDF targeted the launch site in Lebanon. The conflict extends to both Gaza and northern Israel, with concerns about clashes with Hezbollah escalating tensions further. The IDF is preparing for air, sea, and land attacks and major ground operations against Hamas, involving hundreds of thousands of reservists. Israel seeks to control territory quickly while avoiding street-by-street fighting. Hamas has displayed unexpected military capability, and analysts believe they are well prepared for the next phase of the conflict. Hostages, including soldiers and civilians, are a concern in densely populated areas. Tens of thousands of civilians are leaving northern Gaza, as Israel has ordered their evacuation. This poses a challenge for hospitals in the area. Israel has imposed a siege on Gaza, cutting off access to essential supplies. Aid is being sent from various countries, and international efforts are focused on achieving a ceasefire. President Joe Biden has engaged in diplomatic efforts to prevent further escalation, holding talks with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has discussed the need to protect citizens in Gaza and provide humanitarian aid. Russian President Vladimir Putin warned Israel not to besiege Gaza, drawing parallels to the siege of Leningrad during World War II. Putin criticized Israel's response to Hamas's attacks, but emphasized Israel's right to defend itself. His comments were viewed as contentious, given the historical reference to Nazi Germany, and raised concerns about potential offense in Israel. Russian President Vladimir Putin called for negotiations in the Middle East, and emphasized Moscow's readiness to coordinate with constructive partners to address the Israel-Hamas conflict. He proposed the creation of an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital as the key to resolving the conflict. Putin highlighted Russia's potential role in mediation, given its relations with Iran and major Arab powers. Putin expressed concern about a possible Israeli ground attack, warning of serious consequences and the unacceptability of civilian casualties. he made a contentious historical reference to the siege of Leningrad, comparing it to Israel's actions and raising concerns of offense in Israel. However, Putin also stressed Israel's right to self-defense. The comments came as Israel urged more than 1 million people in Gaza City to move south within 24 hours in anticipation of a ground offensive. The airstrikes on Syria's airports were reported, with a potential aim to disrupt Iran's supply lines to Syria, as these airports also host military bases serving as transit points for Iranian weapons destined for Hezbollah. Iranian Foreign Minister Hassan Amir Abdullahian's visit to Syria was seen as an attempt to garner regional support for Hamas. Iran celebrated Hamas's attack on Israel and condemned Israel's response. Amidst ongoing clashes, the IDF conducted attacks on Hamas's elite forces and targeted senior Hamas operatives. Cross-border clashes between Israel and militants in southern Lebanon and Syria were reported, leading to Israeli reinforcements in the north. The U.S. Embassy in Lebanon was evacuated due to concerns over Hamas's attempt to infiltrate northern Israel through the Lebanese border, signifying the potential expansion of the conflict. U.S. officials also advised American citizens in Lebanon to leave, indicating concerns that the conflict might spill over into Lebanon. This underscores the growing international impact and concern about the Israel-Hamas conflict. As the Israeli-Hamas conflict escalates, Western states are providing support to Israel. The United Kingdom is reportedly sending a surveillance plane and 2 Royal Navy ships to the eastern Mediterranean to assist Israel. The aircraft will conduct patrols to monitor threats to regional stability, including the transfer of weapons to terrorist groups. The support package includes surveillance assets, helicopters, patrol aircraft, and a naval unit. The UK's Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, stated that this military support aims to prevent further escalation. A task group from the Royal Navy will be deployed to the region to support humanitarian efforts. The goal is to ensure that the situation in Israel does not lead to further humanitarian crises, and the UK is committed to stopping Hamas's terrorist campaign. Additionally, the British Foreign Office is organizing flights to evacuate British citizens stranded in Israel, with the first plane leaving Tel Aviv on Thursday, and more scheduled in the coming days, subject to security conditions. Egypt has been holding talks with Israel and the United States to facilitate the delivery of aid and fuel through the Rafah crossing point, which remains closed on both sides. Lebanon's interim prime minister has called on all Lebanese factions to show restraint and avoid getting involved in Israeli plans. He expressed concern about the events on Lebanon's border with Israel, attributing them to Israel's provocations and violations of UN Security Council resolutions. The situation suggests that the conflict between Israel and Hamas is likely to escalate further with the initiation of a ground attack.